Since the beginning of the coronavirus era, for some reason, the media has heaped praise on top of the big fat head of Andrew Cuomo. This is bizarre, considering he has had, of course, the worst results of any leader in the world when it comes to a COVID response. Also, it's a well-known fact that Andrew Cuomo is awful.com. We had a little bit of an indication yesterday as to why the media loves him so much when Cuomo ran his mouth about President Trump. Quote, "He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York. New Yorkers don't want to have anything to do with him. He can't have enough bodyguards to walk through New York City. People don't want to have anything to do with him." No wonder the press loves Cuomo so much. He threatens the president publicly like they wish they could. Just be careful, President Trump, I will say. If Cuomo says he wants to bring you to a nursing home, run for your life. If you've been watching this show for a while, you know that Andrew Cuomo is intentionally undercounting the nursing home deaths in his state, period. You know that, of course, Andrew Cuomo is responsible for thousands of deaths because of his policies and his incompetence. And you know Andrew Cuomo is awful.com. But while we spend the overwhelming part of our time picking apart what the left says, let's take a second to hit another claim. This has largely been circulated inside the conspiracy world, but you may have seen it online, so let's kind of go through it and sort it out. This week, the CDC quietly updated the COVID number to admit that only 6% of all of the 153,504 deaths recorded actually died from COVID. That's 9,210 deaths. The other 94% had 2 to 3 other serious illnesses, and the overwhelming majority were of advanced age. This is a common misunderstanding about how health statistics work. And when we pause and think for a second, we know all of this already. We hear the stat all the time about 50,000 people dying of the flu. But we all know what that means, right? It's not like 50,000 college athletes are walking around totally healthy, catch the flu, and die. It's grandmas and grandpas. It's people with other serious ailments. They are somewhat unhealthy already, and then the flu comes around and pushes them over the edge. Those always counted as flu deaths, and obviously they should count as flu deaths. I've used this analogy to explain this before, but it's worth revisiting. Let's say you're in a wheelchair and someone wheels you up to the edge of a cliff and then walks away. And then a huge gust of wind blows you to your painful demise below. Oh my God, look at this poor guy. He's upside down. What is your cause of death in that situation? Well, if the guy didn't push you to the edge of the cliff, the wind wouldn't have killed you. If the guy pushed you to the edge and the wind never blew, you'd still be alive too. Both things worked in conjunction to end your life. This is incredibly common when it comes to death in America. The overwhelming majority of deaths in America have multiple causes. While this has been presented like some big government scam to inflate the numbers, it's just the normal way these things are recorded. It's totally boring and totally regular. To show that this isn't some new crazy idea developed just for COVID, look at this study from Minnesota. It showed overall 68.9% of the 326,332 deaths from 1990 to 1998, way before COVID, had at least one non-underlying cause of death in addition to the underlying cause of death, i.e. had multiple causes. This study from Montana shows basically the same thing. 67.4% of deaths had 2 or more causes. And I have to say, if you look closely at this, man, life must have sucked for the 1.6% of people at the bottom there who had 8 or more causes of death. Holy crap, what a nightmare. Now, the COVID percentages are a little bit higher. Instead of about 70% with multiple causes in normal circumstances, it's more like 90% with COVID. Why? Because it's hitting older people, as we know. Deaths with a single cause are usually more like a young, healthy person who crashes their car or commits suicide. The thing is, when we hear pre-existing conditions or chronic illness, understandably, we think of someone with cancer in the middle of a deep chemotherapy treatment. But it's not just massively serious things like that. It's stuff like obesity and diabetes, things you can live with for decades if you don't get hit by COVID. So how big are these groups? Well, the number of Americans dealing with chronic illness in America, we are not a healthy country. I hate to break this to you. The number for chronic illness in America is, you know this number is big because you walk around a mall or you walk around a beach and you just see everyone and they just don't look healthy, you know? Chronic illness in America estimated at 157 million. That's basically half the population. You also have 54 million Americans over the age of 65. Now, there's a lot of crossover in those two groups, but, you can see why it's a bit tricky to try to isolate the most vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. To turn it around the other way, think about it this way. If we calculate deaths like this tweet suggests, it's impossible for an obese person to die of COVID, or someone with diabetes to die of COVID, or someone with hypertension to die of COVID. Because the death certificate would also list hypertension or obesity. It wouldn't be counted under this argument. In effect, only completely healthy people would be able to die of COVID, which makes no sense at all. It's the exact opposite of everything we know about the disease. It's totally normal and natural to look at this stuff with real skepticism, especially when you see people like Nancy Pelosi, walking around maskless inside of a hair salon that's closed for everybody else. Combine that with the fact that every scary statistic about COVID is used to excuse, a lockdown of the economy until the year 2932, or at least until November 4th. And I can understand why people want to grasp on every bit of hope that they see on the internet. But it's a totally logical, sensible, kind of boring, but correct position to simultaneously think that COVID really sucks and we can't shut down our economy and grind our lives to a halt. And, look, what we have to do is remember the important things. What is really important here? Of course, the most important thing is blaming Andrew Cuomo for being awful. If coronavirus wasn't a big deal, then Andrew Cuomo is going to completely get away with his crimes against humanity, and we cannot let that stand. No. Instead, we have to start a new conspiracy that Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo invented the coronavirus in their garage while working on their Camaros. That I can get behind. And always remember, Andrew Cuomo is awful.com. And Chris Cuomo is worse.com. Hi, Stu Bergier of Stu Does America here. Thanks so much for watching our video. Did you know you can watch our entire catalog for free right here on our channel? Subscribe now and be sure to hit the thumbs up button on all the episodes you watch, because that's how they know you like this stupid show. And that little bell in the corner as well. Make sure you click that. You'll get notifications every time we post new content. Stu Does America every weekday at 8 p.m. Eastern right here.